When the man you love tells you that you need a lesson, you think he means words, not exile. When he drives you 37 miles into the dark and orders you out, you finally learn what kind of man he truly is. But what he didn't know was that his lesson had been recorded, planned, and prepared for 8 long months. The only one being taught anything that night was him. The rain hadn't started yet, but I could smell it coming, that metallic scent before a storm, the kind that settles on your skin like warning. Andrew's Mercedes idled at the edge of an abandoned rest stop, headlights cutting through the fog like interrogator lamps. He didn't turn off the engine. He just tapped the steering wheel, eyes fixed forward. "Get out," he said flatly. "You need a lesson, Amanda. Walking home might teach you some respect." He'd even done the math. 37 miles. Too far for an Uber, too isolated for buses, just far enough to remind me that he decided how far I could go. I didn't argue. I didn't cry or plead. I just reached for the door handle, my phone already recording in my coat pocket, catching every word, every pause, every cruel breath he took. It wasn't the first time he'd punished me, but it would be the last. 3 hours earlier, we'd been at Morton's Steakhouse, white linen, dim light, our anniversary. He'd toasted to 8 years of success, with that smile he reserved for clients, not wives. Now, the same man who'd ordered an $800 bottle of wine was throwing me into the night like old paperwork. "You embarrassed me," he snapped when I hesitated. "You went behind my back, called my accountant, questioned me in public. Actions have consequences, Amanda." I wanted to laugh. The only consequence he hadn't calculated yet was me. "I only asked where $10,000 went," I said, steady, voice calm enough to sting. "Our joint account." "Our," he repeated, mocking me. "I earn it, I manage it, you spend it. Maybe a long walk will remind you who handles the money in this family." The smell of rain thickened. I thought about the pearl earring in my jewelry box, the one I'd found under our bed 2 days ago. It hadn't been mine. But I kept my face blank. The camera in my pocket needed his arrogance, not my anger. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll walk." Andrew smirked, satisfied, like a teacher whose student had finally obeyed. "Smart choice. Maybe by the time you get home, you'll remember your place." I stepped out. The air was colder than I expected. Wind swept across the cracked asphalt, tugging at my hair as the first drops fell. Behind me, his Mercedes roared, taillights glowing red before disappearing into the dark curve of highway. I stood alone for 60 seconds, enough for the GPS timestamp to lock, enough for the recording to capture silence after cruelty. Then I whispered, "It's done." From the shadows beyond the boarded gas station, headlights flared once, twice the signal we'd agreed on. Marcus's truck rolled forward, black against black, silent except for the low hum of the engine. When he stepped out, umbrella in one hand, thermos in the other, he didn't ask if I was okay. He already knew the answer. "Got everything?" he asked. "Every word," I replied, sliding my phone into his palm. He actually said, "Maybe you'll remember your place." Marcus exhaled slowly, shaking his head. He's going to regret that line. As thunder cracked in the distance, we climbed into his truck. The heater hummed, wrapping the air in soft warmth. Outside, the rain finally began, thick, relentless, washing the road clean of his tire tracks. For a moment, I just watched the droplets slide down the glass, my reflection fractured between them. I didn't feel relief yet, just the strange calm that comes before justice. "Rebecca's filing the papers at 9 tomorrow," Marcus said, starting the drive. "Abandonment, financial abuse, fraud. Valentina's ready with the audit, she's found more offshore accounts." I nodded. "Everything's in motion." Marcus glanced at me. "You sure you want to go through with this? After tonight, there's no turning back." I turned to the window, watching lightning paint the highway white. There's nothing left to turn back to. The storm deepened as we drove, rain hammering the truck roof, thunder rolling like a promise. I closed my eyes, thinking of the woman I'd been 3 years ago. The one who'd apologized for things she hadn't done. The one who'd believed cruelty was passion. That woman was gone. When we reached the hotel, Marcus handed me the umbrella. "Room's ready under your maiden name. Everything's set up." I stepped out into the rain, feeling it soak through my coat, heavy and cold but honest. more honest than anything Andrew had ever said to me. Every drop felt like erasure, like the world washing him off me. As the glass doors slid open and I entered the lobby's golden light, I realized the truth. He thought he'd left me powerless. But he'd only freed me to begin the lesson he'd never see coming. There's a strange silence that follows cruelty. It isn't peace, it's the echo of everything you didn't say, vibrating through your chest long after the shouting stops. That silence filled the hotel lobby as I stood dripping rainwater onto the marble floor, pretending to tremble, while the night clerk rushed toward me with a towel. "Oh my goodness, are you all right?" she gasped, wrapping it around my shoulders. "My husband," I let my voice break, like I'd practiced. "He left me at a rest stop, in the storm. I walked for miles before someone helped me." Her face softened into horror. Perfect. Every detail mattered. The report, the timestamp, the witnesses. Rebecca had explained it all. Make sure they remember you as fragile. Later, you'll show them what fragile women are capable of. By the time she handed me hot tea and processed my check-in, I'd regained my composure just enough to sell the illusion. Amanda Harrison, my maiden name. Room 412. Paid in cash. A woman trying to survive, not plotting the collapse of an empire. The elevator hummed softly, carrying me upward through the scent of old carpet and rain-soaked city air. When I unlocked the door to my room, the act fell away. My hands stopped shaking, my voice evened out. I hung the towel on the chair, pulled out my second phone, and opened the encrypted drive Marcus had built for me. Inside were 8 months of recordings. Every insult, every manipulation, every private conversation Andrew thought was off the record. The first one was from the day he installed the cameras, or thought he had. He'd walked into the living room, gesturing toward the wall, saying, "It's for our safety, Amanda." He didn't know Marcus had replaced the system with our own cameras that reported to me. The second recording was darker the night he'd hidden my car keys because I'd forgotten to ask permission before visiting my mother. His voice, icy calm. "I'm protecting you from your impulses. You should thank me." Back then I did thank him, whispered it through tears. Now, as I sat on the hotel bed in dry clothes, I replayed that moment with the detachment of someone studying evidence, not memories. I'd thought I was weak then. But weakness was never the truth, it was conditioning. A cage painted to look like protection. My phone buzzed with a secure message. "Valentina. Got everything. The last transfer from the hedge fund was flagged this afternoon. He's nervous. Rebecca. We file at 9 a.m. Emergency injunction. All assets frozen. Sleep if you can." Sleep. The word felt foreign. Instead, I opened the small box I'd packed days ago. A notebook, a USB drive, a photograph of me and Marcus as kids standing knee-deep in the Mississippi with mud on our faces. I'd kept it to remind myself that I wasn't born afraid. I'd just forgotten what courage felt like. I sat at the desk, writing. Day 241. The storm began tonight. He thinks I'm walking home, broken. By morning, he'll be the one trying to find his way back to a life that no longer belongs to him. Thunder rolled over the city like applause from something divine. I poured myself a small glass of wine from the minibar, cheap, metallic tasting, but enough to toast the end of my silence. Around midnight, the city quieted. Streetlights blurred behind curtains as I watched droplets chase each other down the windowpane. I thought about the first night Andrew ever shouted at me, not loud, but sharp enough to bruise the air between us. He'd said, "If you keep questioning me, people will think you don't trust your husband." I'd apologized. Then spent years learning how to apologize faster, quieter, prettier. But tonight, for the first time, I didn't owe him anything. The phone buzzed again. "Marcus, you okay?" "Better than ever," I texted back. "He's home, lights on, moving around the house like he's looking for something." "Good, let him look." The clock struck 1 a.m. when I finally lay down. The sheets were crisp, the air conditioner humming faintly. My recording app blinked once, still active, still collecting proof. Outside, rain softened into mist. Inside, my breathing steadied, heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of thunder miles away. He thought he'd left me in the dark to teach me humility. But all he'd done was turn out the lights so I could finally see clearly. Tomorrow, the world would start learning who Andrew Mitchell really was. And I would start remembering who I'd always been. The morning after felt unnervingly calm. No lightning, no chaos. Just soft gray light filtering through rain-smeared windows, the kind of morning that fools you into thinking nothing happened. But everything had. By 7 a.m., I'd already brewed the hotel coffee, turned on my second phone, and watched the notifications pile up like confessions. 12 missed calls. 5 voicemails. 9 messages from Andrew. Each one angrier than the last. Amanda, this is ridiculous. It's been 3 hours. The lesson's been learned. Okay, call me back. Don't make this worse than it needs to be. You think you're teaching me something? Grow up. The old me would have called back at the first message. The new me saved every single one. Around noon, the next act of his unraveling began. My phone lit up with an unknown number. I recognized it instantly. Nyan. I let it ring twice before answering. Silent. Hello, Amanda? Her voice was tentative, like someone rehearsing empathy. Andrew asked me to call. He's worried about you. He said he might have gone too far. Too far? He'd left me in a thunderstorm miles from home. The audacity almost made me laugh. I just think you should talk to him, she continued. He's really sorry. He wants to fix things. Her tone trembled, the performance of a woman who didn't know she was performing for a script I'd written. I ended the call without a word. It went to voicemail seconds later, but I didn't listen. Every message would be another piece of proof, another nail in his polished coffin. By mid-afternoon, my room had transformed into a quiet command center. Laptop open. Documents spread across the desk. Valentina's encrypted folder glowing with data that could topple a kingdom. She'd been working through the night, tracing wire transfers and hidden accounts, not just one, but 3, in the Caymans, another in Luxembourg, all masked through shell companies under names like Blue Dune Holdings and Mistral Partners Limited. Her message pinged again. Found an account tied to Nyan. Jewelry purchases, flights, hotels. Same card he reported stolen last year. I'll send the file. It hit me then, he'd stolen from his own firm, from our future, from everyone who ever trusted him. And he'd thought I was too naive to notice. Rebecca called next, her voice steady as always. The judge approved an emergency hearing for tomorrow afternoon. We'll request a freeze on all assets before he has time to move anything else. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. He's already trying. He transferred another 20,000 at dawn. That's fine. Let him. Each move adds another charge. How are you holding up? I looked out the window, watching the world move like it didn't know my marriage had collapsed into a case file. I'm holding, I said softly. And I'm documenting. That night, I ordered room service. Soup, salad, a glass of red wine, not celebration ritual. The receipt would timestamp my calm. Rebecca's idea. It shows composure. It proves you weren't hysterical or missing. The first sip burned, but it also tasted like proof that I was still here, still in control. Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance, echoing through the city's veins. I imagined Andrew pacing our living room, checking his phone every 5 minutes, refreshing his accounts, wondering when his control slipped through his fingers. Somewhere between the 8th and 9th missed call, I realized something incredible. He was the one trapped now. I'd given him silence, and silence, to a man like Andrew, was the loudest punishment imaginable. By 2 a.m., the phone was still buzzing. Andrew, his mother, his business partner James, even Margaret, his mother's shrill voice breaking through in a voicemail. Amanda, stop this drama. You know Andrew loves you. Come home before you embarrass him further. Embarrass him. That word made me smile. For men like Andrew, reputation was oxygen. I'd just started closing his air supply. I took out my notebook and wrote again, handwriting calm and deliberate. He left me in the rain to remind me who was in charge. But the storm didn't punish me, it cleansed me. The silence after thunder is where women like me rebuild. Marcus texted shortly after. Marcus, he's driving, just left the house, looks agitated. Heading where? Marcus, your car. He's searching the driveway with a flashlight. Perfect. He won't find it. 2 days ago, Marcus had moved my car to a long-term parking garage across town, part of our plan to make my disappearance look authentic. When dawn broke, the sky was soft and pale, as if even the clouds had grown tired of his storm. I opened the curtains and let the light in, warm and new, cutting across the bed like truth through fog. For the first time in years, I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel sorry. Andrew had wanted me broken, crawling back, begging for forgiveness. Instead, I was standing stronger, quieter, sharper than I'd ever been. Tomorrow, the judge would hear the story. And the man who'd left me in the rain to teach me a lesson would finally learn what silence can do. The courthouse smelled like polished wood and nerves. Every heel that clicked against the marble floor echoed like judgment. I stood at the entrance for a moment, steadying my breath, feeling the weight of everything that had led to this day. My navy suit, the one Andrew had never seen fit like armor. Rebecca walked beside me, her briefcase heavy with evidence. Marcus trailed a step behind, silent and watchful, his presence like a heartbeat reminding me I wasn't alone. Inside courtroom 4B, Andrew sat at the defendant's table. His usually perfect hair looked disheveled, his designer suit wrinkled, his jaw tense enough to crack. Beside him was Richard Blackwood, a defense attorney with a reputation for saving guilty men. He glanced up as I entered. For a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, disbelief, then rage. The same rage that once controlled me. Now, it only fueled me. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Patricia Coleman entered, small-framed but commanding, her black robes rippling like storm clouds. We stood. When she spoke, her voice cut clean through the hum of whispers. "We are here for an emergency petition filed by Amanda Mitchell regarding marital assets and allegations of abandonment." She looked down at her papers. "Mr. Blackwood, you've been retained as of this morning?" "Yes, Your Honor," he replied smoothly. "We request a continuance to review the case." "Denied." The word landed like a gavel. "Your client allegedly abandoned his wife 37 miles from home during a severe storm. We proceed now." Blackwood hesitated. Andrew's jaw tightened. Rebecca rose. "Your Honor, at approximately 8:47 p.m. last night, Andrew Mitchell deliberately abandoned his wife at a rest stop on County Road 12. We have an audio recording." The sound filled the room, his voice cold, mine trembling just enough. "You need a lesson, Amanda. Walking home might teach you some respect." Whispers spread through the gallery like wildfire. Andrew's face drained of color. Blackwood leaned in, whispering furiously, but Andrew only shook his head, his expression unraveling. Rebecca pressed on. "In addition, Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell has been systematically concealing marital assets for 18 months, diverting funds into offshore accounts totaling over $8 million. We have documentation of each transfer." "Objection," Blackwood snapped. "These claims are unsubstantiated." "Then let's substantiate them," Rebecca replied, voice smooth as silk. She placed 6 folders on the evidence table. Exhibits A through F, wire transfers, tax records, and fraudulent reports from Mr. Mitchell's own hedge fund. Judge Coleman flipped through the papers. With every page, her expression darkened. "Mr. Mitchell," she said finally, "did you leave your wife at a rest stop last night?" Andrew stood, attempting charm he no longer possessed. "Your Honor, it was a misunderstanding. My wife and I had an argument. She chose to get out of the car." "During a thunderstorm?" "She had her phone. She wasn't in danger." Judge Coleman's eyebrows lifted. "How considerate of you." Laughter rippled quietly through the back row. Rebecca didn't miss a beat. "Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell's so-called argument followed months of documented financial abuse, infidelity, and deliberate gaslighting." She clicked her remote, and photos appeared on the courtroom screen, screenshots of bank transfers, luxury purchases, and emails to Nyan Rodriguez, his assistant. The silence cracked open like thunder when the double doors swung wide. Every head turned. Nyan stumbled into the courtroom, mascara running, heels uneven. She looked around wildly until her eyes locked on Andrew. "You said you were divorced," she shouted. "You said she was crazy and you'd already filed the papers." "Ma'am," the judge warned, "remove yourself immediately." But she didn't. She raised her phone, hands shaking. I have texts, recordings. You promised me we'd be married. You said the money was yours. Two federal agents in dark suits stepped forward, flanking Tom Chin from the SEC. The room buzzed. Your Honor, Chin said, we apologize for the interruption, but we have a warrant for Andrew Mitchell's arrest on charges of wire fraud and embezzlement. The courtroom froze. Even the judge seemed momentarily speechless. Blackwood jumped to his feet. This is highly irregular. So is stealing millions from client accounts, Judge Coleman said dryly. Then, calm and resolute, gentlemen, please wait until we conclude this hearing. Mr. Mitchell isn't going anywhere. Andrew sank into his chair, pale, sweat pooling at his temples. His phone, confiscated moments earlier, kept vibrating with incoming calls. I could see the names flash across the screen. Mother, James, Nayan, all of them, orbiting his collapse. Given the evidence, the judge said, I'm granting the emergency injunction. All marital assets are frozen pending investigation. Mrs. Mitchell is awarded exclusive use of the marital home and temporary support of $10,000 per month. Andrew exploded. That's insane. She doesn't need... Mr. Mitchell, Judge Coleman interrupted, her tone sharp as a blade. You abandoned your wife in a storm after hiding millions in assets. I'm being generous, not holding you in contempt. Sit down. He sat, red-faced and seething, his last illusion of control evaporating under the weight of consequence. As the gavel struck, I felt something shift inside me, not triumph, not vengeance. Freedom. The kind that doesn't shout, just exhales. Tom Chin approached our table quietly. Mrs. Mitchell, your attorney mentioned you have additional documentation. 8 months' worth, I said. Recordings, transactions, emails, everything. He nodded. Your husband's looking at 15 to 20 years, minimum. Andrew must have heard him, because his head snapped toward me. You did this, he spat. You set me up. Judge Coleman's gavel came down again. Mr. Mitchell, control yourself. He pointed a trembling finger. You knew I was going to leave you there. You planned all this. Rebecca didn't even turn her head. Thank you for confirming intent, she said softly. It was over. The man who'd left me in the rain to teach me a lesson had just confessed to his own destruction in front of federal agents, the SEC, and a courtroom full of witnesses. As we walked out, the flash of cameras hit like lightning. Reporters shouted questions. Is it true your husband stole millions? Amanda, will you press additional charges? Rebecca shielded me with her arm, voice steady. My client has no comment. But I did have one thought. One truth humming in my chest as we stepped into the rain outside. He thought he could drown me in a storm. But I had learned how to swim through it and rise above. The next morning, my face was everywhere. Not my choosing. Of course, the courthouse had been full of reporters, and someone had leaked the footage. By 8 a.m., the headline was plastered across local and national news. Hedge fund golden boy arrested for fraud after abandoning wife in rainstorm. They had my name, my photo, even the words I'd spoken to the judge. Some anchors called me the betrayed spouse, others, the woman who recorded her way to justice. I watched it unfold from my hotel room, still in my robe, coffee cooling beside me, half in disbelief, half in quiet vindication. The messages started pouring in. From friends who'd gone silent when things got bad. From neighbors who'd pretended not to see the tension. From strangers who saw me as some kind of symbol. We always knew something was off about him. You're so brave, Amanda. Finally, a man like that gets what he deserves. But mixed in with the support were the daggers. You ruined a good man. Women like you destroy families for money. Enjoy the spotlight, drama queen. And then came one from Margaret, his mother. I hope you're satisfied. Destroying a decent man out of petty jealousy. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over delete. Finally, I just smiled and whispered, Oh, Margaret, you still think this is about marriage. It was never about that. It was about survival. Then I deleted it the same way I'd deleted Andrew from every corner of my life. By noon, the networks were replaying the moment the agents entered the courtroom. The exact second, Andrew's face collapsed, from arrogance to panic. Even muted, it told the entire story. Rebecca arrived with lunch and her laptop. He's in federal custody, she said, setting the bag down. No bail, at least until arraignment. What's the reaction? I asked. She pulled up the latest articles. His firm's clients are revolting, investors are withdrawing funds, and the SEC's already investigating whether his company cooked the books for years. Marcus appeared at the door a moment later, holding his phone out. You need to see this. On the screen was a flood of posts, screenshots, rumors, and then one that made me laugh despite everything. Nayan had gone public. Her Instagram story was a grenade. Photos of her and Andrew in Paris, at luxury resorts, and one particularly devastating shot of the two of them on our balcony, champagne glasses raised. Her caption read, "He told me his wife was emotionally unstable, that she refused to grant him a divorce. I believed him. I was a fool. Turns out, I was just another investment one that stopped paying dividends." Then she uploaded screenshots of text messages, affectionate, manipulative, incriminating. In one, Andrew bragged, "She'll never fight back. She doesn't have it in her." That line, now viral, was being quoted everywhere. Hashtags emerged within hours: number she fought back, number rainstorm justice, number Amanda vs Andrew. I hadn't asked for any of it. But it was poetic in a way. His own arrogance had written my victory headline. By 5 p.m., Andrew's empire was burning from every angle. Clients were demanding refunds. Business partners were lawyering up. Employees were leaking emails. The hedge fund's website had gone offline, replaced by a terse message: operations temporarily suspended pending investigation. Rebecca scrolled through the chaos, shaking her head. He's not just going down for fraud. There's potential racketeering and elder exploitation. The feds found discrepancies in accounts belonging to clients over 70. I felt something tighten in my chest, not fear, not pity, just realization. He hadn't merely been cruel to me. He'd been cruel to everyone. He saw vulnerability as opportunity. And he'd finally run out of victims. That night, the world kept spinning while I sat in the glow of the TV. The newscaster's voice was calm, professional, detached, as if summarizing a movie that wasn't mine. Sources confirmed that Mitchell's wife, Amanda, provided key evidence leading to the arrest. Legal experts are calling her documentation a textbook case in how victims can protect themselves from financial and emotional abuse. I muted the TV and looked out the window. Rain again, softer this time, less violent. It tapped against the glass like a reminder that storms can cleanse, not just destroy. Rebecca raised her glass of water. "To lessons learned," she said. I raised mine too. "To consequences," Marcus added quietly from across the room, "and to not underestimating sisters with recorders in their pockets." We laughed, small, tired, real laughter that filled the cracks the storm had left. But as night settled and the city dimmed, my phone buzzed again. A new name this time. Jennifer. My sister. We hadn't spoken in months, not since she'd chosen Andrew's side in one of his carefully staged family arguments. I hesitated before answering. Her voice was shaking. "Amanda, I need to see you. There's something I have to tell you. It's about Andrew, and about Dad's estate." For a moment, I said nothing. Because I already knew, when people start confessing after a storm, it's never good news. "Tomorrow morning," I said finally. "Come to the hotel, and bring whatever you have." As I hung up, lightning flickered outside the window, again faint, distant, like an aftershock. The storm wasn't over. It was just revealing who else had been standing in the rain all along. When I opened the hotel door the next morning, I almost didn't recognize Jennifer. Her perfect hair was uncombed, her eyes red and swollen, mascara smudged down to her cheeks. She clutched a manila envelope to her chest like a life raft. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered, stepping inside before I could even invite her. "I've done something terrible, Amanda." The air between us was tense, years of sisterhood tangled with betrayal and silence. Marcus stood near the window, watchful but quiet, while I gestured toward the couch. "Sit," I said softly. "Tell me what happened." She obeyed, not like a child scolded, but like someone finally too tired to pretend. "Andrew first contacted me 13 months ago," she began, her voice trembling. He knew about my debts, the gambling. I don't know how, but he did. He said he wanted to help. I didn't interrupt. I just listened the way I'd wish someone had listened to me once. He offered to pay it all off, she continued, if I'd answer some questions. Harmless stuff, he said. About Mom, about the family finances, Dad's estate. You told him. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't realize what he was doing. He said he wanted to surprise you with some kind of investment. He made it sound so generous. Marcus crossed his arms, jaw tight. He manipulated you, he said evenly. The same way he manipulated her. Jennifer opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were printed emails, pages and pages of correspondence between her and Andrew. At first they looked benign updates about Mom's health, reminders to call her more often. But as I skimmed through, the tone changed. His words grew colder, more calculated. You said your father had some kind of trust for Amanda. What bank is it with? Can you confirm if your mother has memory issues? Would she notice if certain papers were signed? My stomach turned. He asked me to get Mom to sign some insurance documents, Jennifer said through tears. Said it would protect her assets. I took them to her, thank God her lawyer was there. He caught it immediately. She buried her face in her hands. I almost helped him steal from our own mother. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Do you have any idea why he wanted those papers? She nodded miserably. To transfer property, to get access to Dad's trust. He knew something about it that I didn't. Something you were never told. My pulse quickened. What do you mean? Jennifer handed me a document from the envelope, old, creased, yellowed at the edges. It was a statement from a private bank in Wisconsin, dated 5 years ago. The name on the account, Amanda Harrison, trustee $2,073,400. My breath caught. Dad left this for me? Jennifer nodded. He knew about my gambling. He wanted to protect what little he had left, so he put it all in your name, but Mom was the guardian until you turned 40. Andrew found out through me. I sank back into the couch, the paper trembling in my hands. Everything clicked, the obsessive questions about my parents, his sudden generosity with Jennifer, his push for me to sign routine documents. He hadn't been protecting the family. He'd been stalking its inheritance. We need to see Mom, Marcus said suddenly. Now, before he finds another way in. Jennifer hesitated. She's having a good day today. The nurse said she's lucid. That was all I needed to hear. Within the hour, we were driving through soft rain to the memory care facility where Mom lived, a place Andrew had called a waste of money when I'd first chosen it. The scent of lavender and antiseptic filled the hallway as we entered her room. Mom was sitting near the window, sunlight warming her silver hair. When she saw me, her eyes brightened. Amanda, sweetheart. Then her gaze shifted to Jennifer and hardened. You came. Jennifer's lip trembled. I'm sorry, Mom. Mom didn't respond right away. Instead, she reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out a small silver key, worn smooth from years of use. Your father wanted you to have this, she said, handing it to me. What is it? I asked. The safety deposit box at First National Bank on Hennepin. Your father put documents there before he died, proof, he said, of who Andrew really was. He told me, if Amanda ever doubts herself, give her the key. The weight of it in my hand felt heavier than metal. It felt like legacy. Mom leaned back, exhaustion softening her voice. I knew what kind of man he was from the beginning, the way he watched the house, the way he asked about money before asking about you. Tears blurred my vision. Why didn't you say anything? I tried, she whispered. But you were in love, and I was already losing my memory. She smiled faintly. I had to wait for the storm to teach you what words could not. For a moment, all I could do was hold her hand thin, trembling, still strong. Jennifer cried quietly beside us. Marcus stepped into the hall to give us privacy. When I looked into my mother's eyes, I saw something clear again, pride and relief. You fought back, she said softly. He never expected that. Men like him never do. They think kindness is weakness. I nodded, gripping the key tightly. Then he's about to learn what kindness can do when it's armed with evidence. That afternoon, we drove to the bank. The vault room was silent, humming faintly with chilled air. The manager, an elderly man with kind eyes, recognized the name on the account instantly. Your father was a good man, he said, as he guided us to the safety deposit room. Told me once he was preparing for a storm he hoped would never come. Inside the box was a stack of documents tied neatly with twine. Forged signatures, fake loan applications, even copies of property transfer forms, all in my name, but none written by me. Each marked with Andrew's fingerprints of deceit. A sticky note in Dad's handwriting rested on top. He will try to take everything, don't let him. For the first time since that night at the rest stop, my hands began to shake, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of vindication. Marcus photographed everything. Jennifer stood beside me, silent, remorse written all over her face. When we stepped out into the rain again, it no longer felt cold. It felt like renewal. As the city lights flickered on, I realized something that made my chest tighten, not with pain, but with purpose. Andrew had spent years trying to erase me financially, emotionally, legally. But my father, in quiet foresight, had built a wall he could never climb. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was inheritance of strength, of survival, of justice passed from one generation to the next. And as I drove home that evening, the silver key resting against my palm, I knew what the next storm would be. Not his. Mine. 4 months later, I walked into the federal courthouse in downtown Minneapolis, the same one where Andrew had first smirked across the aisle, certain he'd outmaneuvered everyone. But that smirk was gone now. His hair had grown out unevenly. His suit, borrowed from the public defender's wardrobe, hung too loose on a body that had lost its confidence and its power. For years, he'd loved performing control. Now, control was something granted to him only between meal trays and head counts. When our eyes met, I didn't feel hate. I felt distance, the kind that comes when you finally see the monster under good lighting. Rebecca brushed a stray hair from her blazer. "You ready?" I nodded. More than ready. The courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the back wall, pens ready. The hum of whispers felt electric. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Torres opened the trial with quiet precision. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is not about one mistake. It's about a pattern, deliberate, methodical deception spanning years. Andrew Mitchell didn't just betray his wife. He exploited his clients, manipulated his family, and preyed on the vulnerable." Every word struck like measured thunder. On the evidence table lay the proof-thick binders of falsified documents, audio recordings, screenshots of transfers, and transcripts from my hidden cameras. When Torres pointed toward me, his voice softened. "And thanks to Mrs. Mitchell's diligence and courage, we have a complete record of his actions." Andrew didn't look up. He stared at the table, jaw twitching. For 11 days, the courtroom became a mirror of his greed. Former clients testified, elderly investors who'd trusted him with their life savings. A retired teacher described how he'd convinced her to sign over control of her account for her convenience. A widower shook as he explained how Andrew had drained his wife's memorial fund under the guise of reallocation. Each voice cracked in the same place, disbelief that kindness could be weaponized so easily. Then came the employees, assistants and accountants, who'd questioned missing money and been quietly dismissed. Valentina testified next, calm and steady, her spreadsheets projected on the screen like maps of deceit. "He moved client money into personal accounts," she explained, pointer tracing colored lines between banks, "then laundered it through offshore entities. This was not sloppiness, this was design." Rebecca leaned over and whispered, "They love her clarity." But the turning point came on day 12. The courtroom doors opened, and Nayan walked in. Gone were the designer clothes and diamonds. She wore a plain gray dress and no makeup, her hair tied back, her expression haunted but resolute. She had been granted immunity in exchange for testimony. When the prosecutor asked, "Miss Rodriguez, how long were you involved with the defendant?" she answered without flinching, 18 months. "And during that time, did he ever discuss his business practices?" "Yes. He liked explaining them. He said moving money was like playing chess, everyone else was playing checkers." She produced her phone, unlocking it to reveal dozens of audio clips. Andrew's voice filled the courtroom. "Amanda's the perfect cover. Sweet, naive, believes everything I say. By the time she figures it out, I'll be in Costa Rica, drinking rum and laughing." The jurors' faces froze. Even the judge's expression darkened. And then the dagger. Nayan's voice, shaking but clear. 3 weeks before his arrest, he told me he was leaving me too. Said he'd found someone new in Costa Rica, another woman he was going to train. A ripple went through the room. For the first time in his life, Andrew had no words. When the prosecutor called the next witness, the room seemed to hold its breath. A young man, early 20s, slim, eyes too familiar, took the stand. "My name is Christopher Walsh," he said. The whisper spread instantly. His son. Andrew's hidden son. The secret he'd buried for 2 decades. Christopher's mother, a former finance intern, had been paid monthly for silence with money traced back to client accounts. Torres's voice was steady. "Mr. Walsh, how long did your mother receive payments from Andrew Mitchell?" 22 years. $1,500 a month. And what did he tell her would happen if she spoke out? Christopher swallowed hard. He said he'd ruin her, that he had friends in high places who'd make sure she never worked again. The jury leaned forward. Even the defense attorney stopped taking notes. The illusion of a misunderstood businessman had just evaporated, replaced by the truth of a lifelong predator. By the time Andrew took the stand in his own defense, it was almost painful to watch. He was desperate, cornered, trying to charm his way out with the same smoothness he'd once used to trap me. "I made mistakes," he said, voice rehearsed. "But I'm not a monster. My wife knew about the accounts. We had arrangements." Rebecca's pen stopped mid-note. Torres stood, walking slowly to the front. "Arrangements, Mr. Mitchell?" "She benefited," Andrew said, gesturing toward me. "Luxury, travel, everything she wanted. And when I stopped giving, she retaliated." The prosecutor pressed play on one last recording. Andrew's voice again, cold, cruel, undeniable. "She's too stupid to notice what I'm doing. If she does, I'll make her think she's crazy first." The silence afterward was heavy enough to suffocate. Even the bailiff looked away. The jury deliberated less than 3 hours. When they returned, every face was resolute. On count 1, wire fraud, guilty. Count 2, conspiracy to commit financial crimes, guilty. Count 3, elder exploitation, guilty. 15 counts, 15 verdicts. 15 times the word guilty echoed through the chamber. Andrew's head dropped into his hands. For once, he wasn't performing. When the judge dismissed the jury, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for years. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. Rebecca squeezed my hand. Marcus smiled faintly from the gallery. And I finally understood what freedom sounded like, a gavel hitting wood. 2 weeks later, sentencing. Judge Coleman looked down at Andrew with icy authority. "Mr. Mitchell, you preyed on trust, the trust of your clients, your colleagues, and your own family. You orchestrated abuse with precision and arrogance. This court sentences you to 96 months in federal custody, without the possibility of early release. 8 years. Not enough to erase the damage, but enough for him to remember every storm he caused." As the bailiffs prepared to escort him out, he turned toward me. His lips moved silently, but I read them easily. "This isn't over." I stood and spoke clearly enough for every microphone to catch it. "You're right," I said. "The civil suits start next month." He flinched. And I turned away toward the courthouse doors, toward sunlight, toward the life waiting beyond his shadow. Outside, cameras flashed again. Someone shouted, "Mrs. Mitchell, do you have a statement?" "Yes," I said, pausing long enough for the moment to settle. "Some storms don't destroy you. They reveal what was worth saving." And with that, I walked down the courthouse steps, each one lighter than the last. 8 months after the sentencing, the world was finally quiet again. Not silent, life had too much rhythm for that, but calm in a way I hadn't known in years. I could breathe without waiting for the next cruel word, the next financial ambush, the next carefully orchestrated humiliation. Andrew was gone, locked away in a federal facility with numbers for walls and time as his only company. And me? I was standing inside the building that would become the Phoenix Foundation. A renovated Victorian house on Lyndale Avenue, high ceilings, soft light, and the kind of old wood that creaked with stories instead of secrets. Marcus had found it. Rebecca had negotiated it. And Valentina, who'd once spent her nights untangling Andrew's crimes, now filled the walls with systems designed to protect others. "This place needs to feel safe the moment you walk in," Marcus said, tapping a blueprint pinned to the wall. "No shadows, no corners, no locks you can't open yourself." I smiled. Safety with transparency. Perfect. The mission was simple but powerful: to help women trapped in financial and emotional abuse find freedom through documentation, legal aid, and quiet, strategic planning. The same tools that had saved me. We started small: one desk, one phone line, one coffee pot that barely worked. But word spread faster than we'd expected. Within a month, the Phoenix Foundation had 3 clients. Within 3, we had 12. Each story was a variation of the same song, Fear, sung in different keys. A teacher whose husband hid their savings in offshore accounts. A nurse threatened with deportation if she tried to leave. A young mother whose name had been forged on a mountain of debt. We listened, we strategized, we documented, and one by one, we watched them walk into light. The first client we fully rescued was Maria, the teacher. When she left her final session, she hugged me with trembling hands. "You gave me my name back," she whispered. That night, I sat alone in my office after everyone had gone. The rain was back, tapping against the tall windows. I thought of the rest stop. The way my heart had pounded when the car door shut, when the taillights disappeared into the dark. How I'd mistaken abandonment for ending when it was actually the beginning of my rebirth. I turned on the small plaque mounted by the door, its golden letters catching the lamplight. The Phoenix Foundation, from ashes to ascent. 3 months later, the team had grown. Valentina managed financial forensics. Rebecca oversaw legal filings. Marcus trained staff on safety and security: panic buttons in every office, secure transportation routes for clients in danger. Then, one morning, Jennifer showed up at the door. No makeup. A quiet strength replacing her old restlessness. In her hands, a box of donuts. "I want to help," she said simply. "I know what it's like to be manipulated. Maybe I can help others see it sooner." We started her on the phones. Within a month, she was running group sessions using her own story to guide others through guilt and recovery. Her voice was soft but steady. She had turned her regret into service. Sometimes, Mom would visit on her clear days. Marcus would drive her from the care home, and she'd sit in my office, admiring the framed thank you notes from women we'd helped. She'd always touch the photo of Maria, our first client, and say, "Your father would be proud. You took the pain and turned it into something that saves." One rainy afternoon, Rebecca came in holding an envelope. "Mail from the prison," she said carefully. "It's from him." Andrew's handwriting, sharp, familiar, infuriatingly neat. 4 pages of venom. He accused me of betrayal, manipulation, of using him for a story. He ended with one line that made me laugh out loud. "I hope you finally learned your lesson." I framed the letter and hung it on my office wall, right between my degrees and our foundation's mission statement. Every client who asked about it got the same answer. "Yes," I'd say with a smile. "I learned that no one gets to define my worth. I learned that cruelty doesn't end stories, it ignites them." Months passed. We celebrated milestones with cake and laughter. The foundation helped 87 women by the end of our first year. 87 lives rewritten. 87 storms survived. At our anniversary gala, held in the converted ballroom upstairs, one of our biggest donors took the stage. Mrs. Eleanor Hartley, the elderly widow Andrew had once defrauded. She spoke softly, her cane glinting under the lights. "That man tried to convince me I was losing my mind," she said, voice trembling but proud. "Amanda showed me I was actually finding my strength. The Phoenix Foundation gave me back my faith in justice, and in women." The applause that followed filled the room with warmth. I looked around at the faces: Marcus, Rebecca, Valentina, Jennifer, and so many women who'd turned pain into purpose. It felt like the first true family I'd ever chosen. Later that night, I stood by the window as rain whispered against the glass. Downtown lights shimmered through the drizzle, painting gold across the wet pavement. I thought back to that night on the highway, the cold, the fear, the feeling of being small beneath the storm. He'd wanted to teach me obedience. He'd wanted me to walk 37 miles to remember my place. And I had just not in the way he intended. I had walked every mile of it in my own way through the courts, through the evidence, through the rebuilding. Each mile had led me here. I was no longer the woman who begged for kindness. I was the woman who built shelter from cruelty. Before I left that night, I walked to the framed letter one more time. His final words stared back at me, arrogant as ever. "I hope you learned your lesson." I whispered my reply into the quiet office. "I did." Then I turned off the light and smiled. Never underestimate the woman you abandon in the rain. The storm outside softened to a drizzle, steady, cleansing, alive. And somewhere inside that sound, I heard my father's voice again. The best revenge against cruelty is kindness to others. Through the Phoenix Foundation, that lesson had become a legacy. Because the truth is simple, some storms break you. Others rebuild you. And I was never just a survivor of the rain. I was the shelter that rose from it.